Last week, Marvel Rivals, a Marvel-based hero shooter, was released. But what can Overwatch learn from their new competitor? Let's have a look. I realize that this video might rub some people the wrong way, but I have been playing Overwatch since the Overwatch 1 beta, a long time ago, and I plan to play that game for many more years to come. I am quite hopeful about the future of Overwatch. Yet, that does not mean that I can't play any of the other games that are in the genre. As I've said many times before, I don't buy into that whole polarizing them versus us thing, which has been very prevalent as of late, mainly because of some frustrated ex-Overwatch players. But in the end, both games are fun, so I'm playing both of them. That's what games are meant for. Fun. By the way, I'm also making Marvel Rivals content on my Deemsy's Plays channel. So if you also like Rivals, go check it out. The link is below. Now, while I did say in this intro that they are competitors, these two games are quite different in a lot of ways. I mean, when it comes to target audiences, there's definitely an overlap, a pretty big one. But they both have their own kind of thing, so to speak. I do think, however, that both games can learn from each other. That each game does some things that the other team could look at to make their game better. And in this video, I'm looking at some stuff that the Overwatch team can learn from Marvel Rivals. Now, yesterday, I posted a similar video on my other channel, the Deemsy's Plays channel, in which I look at the things that Rivals can learn from Overwatch. So if you're interested, go check it out. Now, to be fair, the list of things that Overwatch can learn from Rivals is lengthy, kind of depending on who you ask, of course. But I'm going to limit myself to 5 ideas. However, feel free to add your suggestions in the comments below. I look forward to reading them, and I might actually do a follow-up video in a few weeks. Alright, the first thing is something that I already mentioned in an earlier video I did a few months ago, in which I kind of made the comparison and asked myself, is this the Overwatch killer? It is not. But in that video, I mentioned that Marvel Rivals manages to add a lot of story content within the PvP gameplay. And it is actually more than I knew back then. They do a better job at it than I had figured. And they do not only add it to the gameplay, they do it on all levels. It even starts out with the communication. Then there's the seasonal thing. But even the progression system will push the story forward. However, the most impactful one is of course on their maps and throughout the game. There's loading animations, but also actual on-map events. Those could be an NPC that is roaming around, kicking off a story by jumping into the payload. The payload itself could be something that is involved with the lore. There's the buildings, there's all of the props, everything that is happening throughout the map as you play, all kind of drives the story forward. And it goes as far as the end screen, the winner defeat screen, kind of having a different result depending on who won and pushing the story in a different direction. And I mean, it's not like they're telling all these complex stories, but it does add a certain sense of purpose, of motivation. I like that. And you know what? Overwatch used to do that, albeit in a way more limited way, on the older maps. Like in King's Row, for instance, you're pushing a bomb into the Omnic City to set it off. An EMP. Kind of cruel. And on Gibraltar, you're moving a rocket to the end, and in the end screen, you can actually see it take off. But lately, Overwatch seems to have given up on that idea. We've not seen that same thing happening on the newer maps, which is sad. I mean, for me, lore is an important part of Overwatch. It is the heroes and their lore that kept me going back to that game. What actually attracted me to the game in the first place. And since we're not getting PvE, as we all know, this could be a good alternative. So Blizzard, please. Now, while we're talking about lore on the maps, one of my favorite things that they are doing with their maps, and only on their more recent maps, the one they added just before launch, is that they added a certain interactive flavor to all of it. For instance, you can destroy buildings on the maps. That is something that is well known and documented. Now, if you destroy too many of them on the Wakandan maps, you will actually anger the Wakandan gods, and it will set off all these effects, most of them being fire, trying to kill you, which adds to the chaos of what that game already is. On Clintar, the symbiote planet, there's the symbiote triggers that you can shoot that will just kind of build a wall or build a bridge. There will be a platform that raises. And on the Hydra map, your actual progress throughout the game will force the map to change. They kind of set off their defense system, and the map will just kind of start moving in all directions. And some of these directions are lethal. Like a floor might drop down or a wall might slide away. The best one is some of these walls will slide together. And trust me, you do not want to get caught between two of these walls. That must be a very painful way to die. But you'll lose a good deal of weight, I guess. Think? Yeah. But all these elements add a certain interactivity to the map, a sort of evolution, an alternating state, which really sets them apart. And I think Overwatch needs more of that. I mean, for us, a map is just a stage. You have this kind of randomness or these kind of changing things to the maps, much like the day effects that we got in Overwatch, but way more elaborate and user-based. Something else they also might want to consider, and I actually just talked about, are those destructible environments. Now, they were promised to us back in 2019 at BlizzCon when they introduced Overwatch Overwatch 2, one of the things that they told us was that there were going to be destructible environments. They showed off this whole segment on Rio where a building collapsed and whatnot. Now, if I remember that correctly, that was only going to be PvE, but that doesn't mean that they can't do it on PvP. It would kind of be cool if they allowed us to take down some buildings or walls. It would definitely help with some of the more stagnant issues that they have in game, where a choke point might be a little too difficult to hold, and where the game kind of naturally progresses, or that map progresses along with the circumstance. If you can break through that one choke point, create a second one. And in Rivals, for instance, some things will just collapse by themselves because of a story element or whatnot, but at that point, they will change the circumstances in which the end of the match will happen, for instance, to kind of raise the stakes right at the end as the one of the teams is about to lose. I think those are interesting game design ideas that would make the game more exciting. But I can also imagine that it kind of creates a lot of randomness, possible issues, and that it is kind of hard to balance. Now, another thing, that is the fourth item on this list, that makes Marvel Rivals kind of unique, but would fit really well in Overwatch, and that they actually promised us at one point, are team-ups. Now, they didn't really promise us team-ups per se, but in that one animation that they showed off at BlizzCon 2019, set on Paris, there's a moment where Reinhardt and Brigitte's shield will interlock with the connector shields, and that had everybody dreaming about possible ways that heroes could work together. I mean, we've seen the same thing. In Marvel Rivals, we see the Hulk throwing Wolverine, but in that animation we saw Winston throwing Tracer. Just saying, they could do it. And the final one on this list is my favorite, the Battle Pass. Marvel Rivals seems to have succeeded in picking all of the best elements of the different Battle Passes out there and combining them into one. The perfect storm of Battle Passes. Now, first off, the pricing, it's similar to all of the other games. For the first one, it was $5, but it was a short season. For the normal seasons, it's going to be $10, which is comparable to all the other games. And that is for the Premium Pass, by the way. There's also a free track. But what sets them apart, or at least what they did well, every Battle Pass that you unlock the premium version of will remain on your account for the rest of your days. They don't remove the Battle Pass at the end of the season, much like Halo does. Up till now, Halo was the only game that did it that way, I think. So now you can complete that Battle Pass at your own tempo. There's no FOMO. There's no need to be grinding to make sure you finish the Battle Pass. I love that, and it's really smart. I think you sell more Battle Passes that way. And second, that Battle Pass itself is not based on XP, but on a currency. See, by doing these challenges and missions, you earn a currency called Chrono Tokens, and you use those Chrono Tokens to buy items on the Battle Pass. Now, every Battle Pass is broken up in different pages, and the skin is always the last item you can buy. That is one thing I didn't know beforehand. But there's still a lot of freedom in what order you basically unlock all of these items. I like that, because they also add a lot of their currency into the Battle Pass, which is something Overwatch also does, but I think Marvel Rivals adds just a tad more. But if you open up a new page in the Battle Pass, the first thing you could buy are the currencies, which would allow you to buy other stuff in the shop. Overall, this is one of the best Battle Passes I've seen in all of gaming. And it might actually be what Overwatch needs, kind of modernize their whole Battle Pass. Especially the fact that there's no end date, that the Battle Pass does not disappear at the end of the season is a big one. That would make a lot of people happy. It's not like the Overwatch Battle Pass is a difficult one to complete, but people sometimes want to take a break, especially now that there's other games. But anyways, those were the 5 things that I think Overwatch needs to look at in Marvel Rivals. Like I said, I did the reverse video on my other channel, kind of the ideas that Overwatch has that Marvel Rivals might actually benefit from. And that was a little more difficult to make because Rivals is a more modern game and it took a lot of inspiration from the other games, so they got a lot covered. But there's some stuff that is missing. But tell me, what Marvel Rivals feature would you like to see in Overwatch? Let me know in the comments. And don't say 6 vs 6 because we'll be testing that on Tuesday. So hold your horses. But anyways, for now, that was it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. It always helps me out. I also want to thank my patrons. I could not make these videos without you guys. You have my eternal gratitude. You too can join the Omnic Post family over on patreon.com/theomnicpost. Now, if you have a few minutes left, maybe check out one of my other videos. But above all, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Bye-bye.